Hello, I am Henry Keane and we are UATV. We are online to give you the Ukrainian perspective of reality. Today, as usual. Watch in the episode. Russian oil bases ablaze again. Putin's negotiation plan revealed lies, lies and more lies. He will try to play Donald Trump. Just send everyone. Russians send convicted women to the front line. Now sit back, try to relax, learn more, and don't forget to join the right side of history by subscribing to our channel. Welcome to the News Pulse. On the night of August 7th, Russian air defense once again heroically defended their own skies. Although not enough heroically. Not too successful it was, as a massive fire broke out at the Afipsky oil refinery in Russia's Krasnodar region. The incident was reported by Russian Telegram channels as well as the region's governor, who also confirmed another drone attack, this time on a military base in the city of Slovyansk-na-Kubani, where, according to official data, one person was injured, while independent media, us included, reasonably suspect the real number is way higher. Meanwhile, in the coastal area of the city of Novorossiysk, home to key military infrastructure, including a port and a Transneft oil terminals, Russian air defense was also quite active, according to Russian official statements. Still, again, not too successful, according to the Russians themselves. Well, at least based on a flurry of worried, to put it mildly, messages in Telegram Messenger. Well, what can I add here? Oh, those poor bastards. Sorry, Russians.
I don't know about you, but we've never heard shelling like this before, so close and so intense. In Rostov, we've only ever heard the sirens during drills, and nobody really knows what to do. If you're on a high floor, there's no way you can get down in time. You wake up, gather yourself, then you still have to get dressed and go downstairs. All the neighbors came outside, just standing around not knowing what to do, until the shelling started up again, even louder. It was probably the longest 10 minutes of our lives. Most people probably just went back inside and stayed down. The coastal area took the blast wave pretty hard. We went out into the yard, all the visitors are standing around, and the locals just watch from their windows.
I was just completely shocked.
It was intense here for a long time yesterday, and today is just total chaos. We're just lucky Rostov doesn't have a sea and hasn't faced shelling like this. People came here from Kislovsk and said, "Wow, it's terrible here. It's like a real war."
Russia's Ministry of Defense working hard to stay true to its tradition, releasing its usual victorious reports claiming as much as 82 Ukrainian drones were shot down or intercepted overnight. And as for the thick plume of smoke rising from the local oil refineries all across Mother Russia, right on the backdrop of their fancy victorious reportage, well, they just don't comment on that and just let population take it as a symbol of victory, probably looming on the horizon. Not going too much into detail, whose exactly victory is it? And after recent attacks on Russia's Rostov regions, locals have suddenly been lucky enough to live without internet. No maps, no money transfers, nothing, no connection at all. Authorities claim it's all to stop Ukrainian drones, which apparently rely on 4G instead of GPS, as they think. Well, internet blackouts are hitting records high. Russia continues its relentless attacks on Ukraine's region Dnipro, unleashing drones and artillery overnight. Ukrainian air defenses shot down 33 Russian drones, yet the strike still left a trail of destruction. Unfortunately, 4 people were injured, 2 of them hospitalized. The city suffered significant damage indeed. Over 30 cars were wrecked, 8 apartment buildings damaged, and 1 private home was completely demolished. Fires broke out in Pavlograd, Kryvyi Rih and Sinelnikovo district. In Nikopol district, Russia used both artillery and kamikaze drones to target civilian infrastructure, as usual. 8 private houses, a 5-story residential building, several vehicles, critical infrastructure, administrative buildings just as well, and a local enterprise were severely damaged. The Ukrainian Defense Forces eliminated 1,400 more Russian occupiers in the last day alone. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In addition, the Ukrainian defenders has destroyed 4 Russian tanks, 4 armored vehicles, 47 artillery systems. Since the start of the large-scale invasion, the Russian army has lost in killed and wounded a staggering number of total of 1,060,310 soldiers, 163 drones, one multiple rocket launcher system, and 130 units of self-propelled and other special military equipment was also destroyed. The Russian leadership plans to form 10 new divisions in the army by the end of the year. 2 have already been created. This was stated by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky, during a meeting on the results of the activities of the defense forces in July. According to him, the total losses of Russia in July alone amounted to more than 33,000 people, which is almost 1,000 more than in June. Syrsky also noted that the armed forces of Ukraine continue to improve combat training and strengthen the unmanned component.
We continue the core reform to make troop management more effective. The vast majority of the created Army Corps have accepted their areas of responsibility and certain sets of troops. We also analyzed the state of affairs in the areas of troop training, logistics and repair of military equipment, fortification and law and order in the armed forces. Separately, I drew attention to the implementation of all necessary measures to enhance the safety of personnel in training centers and at training grounds. Alexander Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, on Facebook.
In some areas of the front, the Russian assault groups consist of women. Such facts were known early, of course, and now new footage has appeared of Russian women assaulting Ukrainian positions. Well, for ethical reasons, we cannot show you the footage. However, the fact was also confirmed on air of the Freedom TV channel by the spokesman for the Ukrainian Volunteer Army, Sergei Bratchuk. He noted that he was not too surprised by the fact that Russian women were participating in assaults on the front line, although this was quite unusual.
Our military are recording the participation of women in assault operations. Such facts already occurred not only in this year, but also last year and the year before. Then most likely the talk was about the fact that these women who were convicted and signed a contract with the Russian Defense Ministry in order to be released from prison are participating in assault groups. We understand that today the Russians are trying their best to grab literally everyone into their army because the mobilization rate is falling. Some regions have already reduced the payment for signing a contract because the economy of the Russian Federation cannot cope. Accordingly, today all ways and opportunities are being sought to replenish the units of the Russian troops in one way or another.
He called the visit to the Kremlin productive and declared his readiness to meet with Putin. This is how US President Donald Trump commented on yesterday's dialogue in Moscow between the Kremlin's dictator and his special envoy, Steve Witkoff. At the same time, Trump did not call this dialogue a breakthrough in the negotiations.
I don't call it a breakthrough. I mean, we've been working on this a long time. There are thousands of young people dying, mostly soldiers, but also, missiles being hit into Kiev and other places. But in terms of soldiers, I think Russia's lost over 20,000 since the beginning of the year. 20,000. And I guess the estimate for Ukraine is about 9,000. It's a terrible situation. We want to get it stopped. We don't have American soldiers there, but I feel I have an obligation to get it stopped. This was not my war. This war would have never started, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years.
Donald Trump also said he was ready to meet with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin as early as next week already. After that, he plans to hold a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump believes that both Zelensky and Putin will agree to this initiative.
Well, there's a very good prospect that they will. And we haven't determined where, but we had some very good talks with President Putin today. And there's a very good chance that we could be ending the end of that road. That road was long and continues to be long, but there's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
The United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio also spoke about a possible meeting between Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. According to him, it could take place provided that the positions of Ukraine, its European partners, and Russia can be reconciled. In addition, Rubio noted that territorial issues could be key and that a ceasefire should take place at a certain stage of the negotiations. Well, meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State will make a statement later on whether potential sanctions against Russia will actually remain in force. As already on Friday, tomorrow, the deadline set by US President Donald Trump for new sanctions against Russia will expire if Moscow does not demonstrate progress. And what most obviously will happen is what always happens with the Kremlin, right? Putin will fake his readiness for peace, so to lure Trump in another 50 days ultimatum, effectively being another 50 days respite for Putin, openly playing Trump and spitting on all ultimatums. Well, that is my bet on how Putin will avoid sanctions, as it always, I repeat, always was the case earlier. But maybe this time it's just me, and Putin won't lie when meeting Trump. And they will just, discuss concessions of Ukrainian territories that Putin had annexed.
Russia has taken, that they currently control, and that includes Crimea, that goes back all the way to 2014, and some other areas that made some advances. So that, and then there are, so obviously anytime you're going to make a deal, there's going to have to be concessions. There's going to have to be concessions by the Russians and concessions by the Ukrainians, of course, as well. So that's tough. This is tough when you have a war and people have died. For example, on the Ukrainian side, they've paid an enormous price in this war. So have the Russians, but the Ukrainians have paid a big price in this war. Those concessions aren't easy. You have to also sell them to the public back in your country.
Following Steve Witkoff's visit to the Kremlin, a telephone conversation took place between the presidents of Ukraine and the United States. After it, Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine would definitely defend its independence and Russia must end the war it unleashed. Also, according to him, it seems that the Kremlin is now more inclined to a ceasefire. But the main thing, Zelensky noted, is that this time Moscow should not deceive either Ukraine or the United States in any detail, like it was always the case with Russia before.
Our common position with our partners is absolutely specific and absolutely transparent. It is time to end the war, and to do it honestly. It is extremely important to do it honestly. European leaders were present on the call. I am grateful to everyone for their support. We discussed what was said in Moscow. It seems that Russia is now more inclined to ceasefire. The pressure on them is working. But the main thing is that they do not deceive us or the United States in detail. We suggested that in the near future, our representatives, Ukrainian partners, our security advisors hold discussions to determine our position, our common position and common point of view. For us, for Ukraine, this is very important. Ukraine will definitely protect its independence, and we all need a long and reliable peace.
Russian generals assure Putin that they will allegedly be able to break through the Ukrainian defense in just 2 or 3 months, writes Reuters. But all this is just a pretty picture for the dictator. The Russian General Staff provides Putin with false and overly positive reports that he wants, and this is a serious problem for the top echelon of the Russian armed forces, actually, according to the Institute for the Study of War. At the front, everything is different. Instead of victories, the losses. The Russian command sends women and soldiers who have already returned from captivity to carry out meaty assaults, meat waves, so-called. The topic in more detail for you by Nikita Skoblikov.
The Russian army is now sending female convicts into assaults. Ukrainian forces have released footage showing Russian women advancing on the front lines. According to documents from the Russian Ministry of Defense obtained by Ukraine's I Want to Live project, these women are initially enlisted to serve in medical units or drone divisions, but ultimately end up on the front lines, storming Ukrainian positions.
Training is supposed to take place at military bases 95371 and 95372, funded by the Moscow city government. But, as usual in the Russian army, the reality for these inmates ends with their deployment to Storm Z and being sent on human wave assaults. Ukrainian troops have already begun releasing videos showing the destruction of these assault units that included women. From a post by Hochu Zhit on Telegram,
after suffering massive losses on the battlefield, the Kremlin is now recruiting virtually anyone. There are fewer volunteers signing up for money, and financial incentives are also shrinking. According to Ukrainian media Crimea Reali, at least 5 Russian regions have already reduced their one-time payments to new recruits. Local governments simply can't cover the costs anymore. In Saransk, officials have reportedly started recruiting homeless people, addicts, and even pensioners, in a desperate attempt to meet conscription quotas, according to Ukrainian intelligence sources cited by RBC Ukraine.
Today, Russia is trying to drag absolutely everyone into its army, literally everyone, because even the pace of covert mobilization is declining. We're seeing regions cutting signing bonuses because the Russian economy can no longer sustain these contracts. so now they're exploring every possible option to replenish army units.
The Kremlin is also forcing recently exchanged Russian POWs straight back into combat. Russian propaganda claims these soldiers will receive treatment and rehabilitation once they're home. In reality, they're being sent straight back to the trenches. In Kharkiv region, Ukrainian forces recently captured Russian soldiers who had already been prisoners once. Exchanged in June 2025, it took them less than a month to be back on the battlefield and captured again.
I was captured on the 15th of 2025 and then exchanged on June 20th, 2025. After the exchange, they took me to Moscow, where I was held for 14 days. Then I was sent right back to the 82nd Regiment.
According to Ukraine's commander-in-chief, the Russian army lost over 33,000 troops in July 2025 alone. Despite this, military command continues to send wave after wave into what soldiers themselves call meat assaults. Signs of quiet resistance are growing. According to The Economist, which cites intercepted Russian military communications, more and more Russian soldiers are delaying orders or coming up with excuses to avoid suicidal attacks. But they stop short of openly refusing to fight.
Just like in the Soviet era, they've replaced military strategy with sheer numbers. Imagine a normal army with a commander accountable to the public. Who would allow the loss of 2 battalions per day? In what responsible country would that be acceptable during an offensive? And we're seeing this happen month after month without any real measurable success.
The Kremlin appears unconcerned by the staggering losses. As Putin told Lukashenko during a recent meeting, even 1 million Russian casualties would be not in vain, as long as troops keep advancing. Now, Moscow plans to send even more bodies into Ukraine. According to Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Alexander Sursky, Russia intends to form 10 new divisions by the end of the year, 2 of which are already operational. Reported by Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News.
Well, that was it for today. My name is Henry Keane, and we're News Pulse at UATV. We appreciate your time and intention. Indeed, we do. Thank you. Meanwhile, I urge you to join the fight for freedom and sovereignty, at least by subscribing to our channel, and stay tuned to what is happening in the world, presented to you from Ukrainian perspective. Hope to see you very soon. Stay tuned and goodbye.